Welcome back to the True Detectives podcast. Get ready for another crazy investigation because this week we are diving headfirst into a case that's, well, it's a chilling one to say the least.
It certainly is.
It involves Detective Alex Cross and a series of murders that, well, let's just say they're far from ordinary.
Yeah, far from ordinary is putting it mildly.
You guys have sent us some wild excerpts this week. Really appreciate that.
Always love seeing what you guys dig up.
We're going to try to unpack this strange path, this investigation, see what unsettling truths we can uncover about this case.
All right, let's jump in. What strikes you right off the bat about these initial crime scenes? I mean, we're talking victims drained of blood, posed in these ritualistic settings, covered in ancient symbols. I mean, it's a lot to take on.
Yeah, it's like something out of a horror movie.
Right.
You can almost picture the investigators arriving at the scene. What are they thinking? Witchcraft, devil worship, something occult.
Right, all those explanations that make for sensational headlines but don't always hold up under real scrutiny.
But what's interesting to me is that Detective Cross, he seems to see something else in all this chaos. He sees a disturbing level of, well, precision.
You're right, the excerpts definitely highlight that while the scene screams the supernatural, Cross's experience, his gut, tells him there's a method to this madness.
It's not just random brutality. It's calculated, it's deliberate. And then, of course, there are those ancient symbols. They're not just there for show.
Not at all. They're a form of communication.
Which brings us to our favorite character, the reluctant professor.
Oh yeah, the linguistics expert pulled away from their precious books to decipher this gruesome language.
It's practically a cliche at this point, but I love it every time.
Me too. So what do these symbols actually reveal?
Well, if I'm remembering the excerpts correctly, it's something about an obscure immortality ritual.
The immortality ritual, yeah. You can just imagine the eye rolls in the precinct when that theory came up.
I'm picturing a lot of skepticism, a lot of here we go again looks.
Right. But here's where the investigation takes a turn for the truly unsettling. You start looking at the timeline of the victims' deaths, their physical state, and it starts to suggest something far more disturbing than just some kook with a twisted fantasy.
Yeah, it's not just the staging anymore. It's this detail, this really creepy detail that the victims almost look like they've had years stolen from them, like they've been drained of their life force.
It's almost as if the ritual, as crazy as it sounds, is actually working.
And that's when you have to start taking those supernatural explanations a little bit more seriously, right?
Exactly. We're no longer talking about just murders with weird staging. We might be talking about a way to transfer life from one person to another. And that's a whole different ballgame.
It's a game changer, for sure. And then just when you think the case can't get any stranger, you have Detective Cross's partner, Ben, who just throws out this seemingly casual observation. He says it feels personal, like the victims are being picked off a list.
And that right there, that little comment, that gut feeling, is a major turning point.
It shifts the focus from a random series of killings to something targeted, planned, and it leads Cross to this absolutely terrifying realization.
About his family?
His family, he thinks about his grandmother, her genealogy book, all those names and dates meticulously recorded.
And suddenly that book becomes a hit list?
It's chilling, this idea that his own family history, something that's supposed to connect him to the past, could be used to target people in the present.
And from there, the stakes just skyrocket for Cross. It's no longer just a case, it's personal. He's fighting for his family's safety.
The excerpts really show how desperately he's trying to connect the dots. The symbols, the locations, everything. He's trying to find a link to the victims, trying to get ahead of the killer.
And with each dead end, that fear of a generational curse, some ancient evil lurking in his family's past, must have just grown stronger.
It's like he's racing against time, racing against his own family history. And then, of course, we have the classic discovery in the dusty library. You know, the old book, the hidden knowledge. It's a trope, but it always works.
It's classic for a reason. So, what does this ancient tome reveal about the immortality ritual? It's not as simple as it seems, is it?
Not at all. It seems there's a pretty gruesome price to pay for this extended life.
A recurring price.
A life for a life, if I recall correctly. And not just any life. The sacrifice has to be someone from the killer's own bloodline.
And that's the kicker. It completely reframes the whole investigation. The killer isn't some outsider. They're family.
Their family. The pool of suspects just got a whole lot smaller, but the implications are 1,000 times more terrifying.
And then comes the real gut punch. The next victim is identified.
Aunt Evelyn.
The excerpts really drive home the personal impact here. The apple pies, the fireside stories. It's no longer just an abstract victim, it's family.
It's someone Cross knew, someone he loved. And her death, it's not just a clue, it's the price paid for someone else's unnatural life.
And that someone is family. And then Ben discovers a new crime scene. The killer's getting bolder, more confident, maybe even taunting Cross at this point.
And what Cross finds at this new location, it's a message, loud and clear. It's not fingerprints, it's not DNA, it's the genealogy book.
Laid open. marked with an X.
Like something out of a bad dream, it's a direct challenge. The killer's not hiding anymore. And then comes the confrontation. Cross and his grandmother, face to face. The way it's described, it's almost unsettlingly normal.
She's just sitting there, calm as can be, across from the market book. It's that casualness that makes it so creepy. And then she says those words.
Alex, my dear, it's time.
Chilling. Absolutely chilling.
And in that moment, the truth hits Cross like a ton of bricks. The killer, the monster, it's his own grandmother.
The ultimate betrayal. The person who's supposed to represent family, love, history. She's the one behind all this.
And it gets worse because the excerpt suggests that Ben, his partner, was involved too. Maybe he knew the truth, maybe he was manipulated.
Either way, he was being used to facilitate these murders.
Imagine that, your trusted partner, someone you rely on, helping to orchestrate this horrific scheme. It makes you question everything, everyone.
It certainly does. And of course, Cross demands an explanation. He needs to understand why, how this darkness took root in his family.
And her answer, it's almost the most disturbing part of the whole thing. It's not about power, it's not about money, it's about this ritual, this gift, she says, this hunger that can never be satisfied.
Like she's a victim of this thing too, trapped in this cycle of death and sacrifice.
But it doesn't excuse her actions, not even a little bit. And then things escalate even further. Ben draws his weapon.
Loyalty's shattered. Cross is caught in the middle, his family, his partner, everything's collapsing around him.
He's forced to make an impossible choice. And then his grandmother, she reveals her true intentions. She doesn't just see Ben as a potential sacrifice. She sees Alex, her own grandson.
She wants his fiery Cross blood. He's the next target.
It's the ultimate betrayal, and that's when the realization hits Cross. He's not just fighting a killer, he's fighting a legacy, a twisted, bloody legacy that will continue unless he stops it.
And the gunshot rings out. Ben falls, a pawn in this horrible game, caught in the crossfire.
It's a tragedy, but in that moment, it feels like the only option. Cross is left standing there, the gun in his hand, facing his grandmother.
The genealogy book between them, a symbol of their shared past, the good and the bad.
He vows to end the cycle, to bury his grandmother, to destroy the book. It's like he's trying to erase this evil from his family's history.
To protect future generations from this darkness.
He walks out of that house, but the weight of what he's done, what he's seen, it's heavy, and the threat might not be completely gone.
He's marked by this, forever changed. He has to stay vigilant because who knows what other secrets are lurking out there.
It's an incredibly twisted investigation. I mean, the killer being his own grandmother, driven by this ancient ritual, it's just mind-blowing.
It really makes you think about the length people will go to for immortality, the secrets families keep, the darkness that can hide in plain sight.
The psychological toll on Cross must be immense. Not only did he face the supernatural horror, but he had to make those impossible choices, betrayals, loss.
What do you think stood out the most in this case, this whole concept of a generational curse? Is it just a convenient explanation, or is there something more to it?
It's a question that lingers, right? If this kind of darkness can exist in a seemingly normal family, what else is out there? What other secrets are waiting to be uncovered?
We encourage you all to delve deeper into this, the lore, the mythology, the psychology of it all. There's a lot to unpack here.
Thank you for joining us on the True Detectives podcast for this incredibly disturbing investigation. Rate and follow the show for more true crime and true detective stories. We'll see you next time.